Hello, friends, and welcome to the PowHERful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. In this podcast, we introduce you to powerful women who are changing the game in and outside of their field of play. These are women's stories, women who happen to be doing things that many of us can only dream of, but the lessons and inspiration they share is universal. Hey friends, welcome back to the PowHERful Podcast. I'm your host, AJ McCord. I am so excited to introduce you to our next powerful woman. This is somebody who competes in a sport that is near and dear to my own heart. And she has been one of those sort of teenage phenoms that we've been watching for years and years. She's already made her Olympic debut in Tokyo. But this summer in Paris, she is going to make some history as the first woman in her sport to compete in not one, not two, but 3 events. We're talking women's canoe, women's kayak, and a brand new sport debuting in Paris in 2024, women's kayak cross. So Evy Leibfarth, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much, AJ. I'm so excited to talk with you today.
It's going to be so fun. So I talked about your sport being near and dear to my own heart, and that's because I was a whitewater rafting guide in college, and so I rafted on the Arkansas River, Browns Canyon in Colorado, and so watching you do kayaking, canoeing in this whitewater, it has just been so cool to see how you have literally taken to it like a fish to water. Tell us how you got into this sport.
Yeah, so I've been in the sport literally my entire life. My parents actually met as raft guides, which is kind of crazy. And so I always grew up like right by the river. My parents took me kayaking for the first time when I was maybe like, I don't know, 5 months old or something. They used to take me down little rivers on their lap. And then as I got older, I like begged for my own kayak, and they got me a neon pink kayak and a sparkly paddle. And I think that was half the reason that I loved it when I was really little, because I loved the color. And then, yeah, as I grew up, I just really found a love for it. I just loved being in the water, being on the river, and would do just kind of anything that could get me closer to that.
And you grew up in North Carolina, right? Those were the rivers that you were close to?
Yes, ma'am. So I grew up 10 minutes from the Nantahala River, and that's a great place for, rafting, learning how to kayak. It's like class 2, 3 for most of the river. And so
Perfect.
It's just an amazing place to learn.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you go from, because your sports are pretty new. I mean, the women's canoe debuted in Tokyo, right? And then kayak cross is debuting this year in Paris. And so at what point did this go from, like, I have a ton of friends who are whitewater rafting guides. We still go back almost every summer to Buena Vista in Colorado and get a chance to get on the river again. But even me, as somebody who was in the sport and thoroughly enjoyed it, I'm very competitive, didn't really understand that there was an opportunity to compete in the Olympics. Like, at what point did that switch for you of going, oh, this is really fun and I want to do it every chance I can, to, wait a minute, actually, this could be a career. I could make something out of this.
It actually switched for me when I was pretty young. My dad was a coach for the U.S. national team before I was born. So I kind of always had someone in my corner telling me, hey, like, if you want to go to the Olympics in this, like, you're going to have to work hard, but you can make it happen. And I remember being 8 years old. We had an Olympic Day celebration at the Nantahala Outdoor Center. And I was watching on the TV someone that, like, I knew personally competing in the Olympics. And I remember, like, talking to my dad and being like, oh my God, like, I want to do that so badly. How do I make this happen? And I think that that's when I decided that I wanted to go to the Olympics in the sport, but I didn't really think it was going to happen so early for me, actually. It was kind of a surprise getting to go to Tokyo, because I qualified after just one season on the senior circuit, because you have to be 15 in order to race, and so
Right.
I had to wait until my 15th birthday, and then it all kind of happened in such a blur.
Oh my gosh.
Crazy experience.
What do you remember about that whirlwind of a time qualifying for your first Olympics at 16?
Oh gosh, it's hard to say. I guess I just remember being really excited and just kind of being like, oh, well, I guess I'll see where this goes. Because, I went into that season just having no idea how I was going to do compared to all the older girls, people that I'd been watching since I was 8 years old. And I just had a lot of fun with it. I think that it was a completely different world for me. There was a lot of other things to focus on instead of just kayaking. There was being drug tested, and there was, all of the travel and making sure that you had enough time to train before the race. And then just learning how to deal with the stress that came around it. So it was just so much happening at once, but I've always loved, kind of being in a fast-paced, changing environment. So I really loved it, actually.
Okay, so speaking of fast-paced, changing environments, for people who don't have a great understanding of kayak cross or kayaking, canoe, give us a little bit of a breakdown of your sport and each of the disciplines that you're going to be competing in this summer.
Yeah, so kayak and canoe, I'd say, are the most traditional disciplines. They've been around for pretty much as long as the sport has been around, and that's your typical around 20 to 24 gate course. It's down a section of river with some rapids, and there's 6 upstreams, and then the rest are downstreams, and you have to get through basically like the obstacle course as fast as you can without any penalties. So if you touch a gate, you get a 2-second penalty, and if you miss a gate, you get a 50-second penalty. So It's all about like being precise, but making those like split-second decisions to get there. And then kayak cross is a much more new sport. I started racing it back in 2019, and it really caught on kind of around that time. But it's actually 4 people going down the course at once, and you're in plastic boats instead of carbon boats because you're actually supposed to like hit each other.
Oh my gosh.
You drop in off this ramp, and then everyone just kind of battles it out. There's only around like 6 or 7 gates, and you're allowed to touch them. You're allowed to move them out of the way with your paddle, and you have to be one of the first 2 people to cross to go into the next round, because it's like a 8th final, quarterfinal, semifinal type of situation.
But
gosh. Yeah, it's crazy because you just have to make so many decisions, and you don't know where anyone's going to go, what's going to happen. A lot of people kind of describe it as bumper cars on the water because you are just trying to bump the other girls out of the way, which is actually like, I don't know. It's crazy because everyone that you're trying to like knock out is also your friends. So it's kind of, you just have to like turn off that mindset for a minute. But I'd say like the biggest difference is in canoe and kayak, you have a plan, you have a visualization, you know exactly how it's going to go, like in an ideal world. And in kayak cross, you have no idea what's going to happen. You have plan A's and B's and C's and D's, and you have all of these kind of connecting decisions that you'd make, but really no one knows what's going to happen.
Oh my gosh. So like kayak cross, for people who maybe watch the Winter Games a little bit more, snowboard cross has been around a little longer. So that's a similar thing. It's like snowboard cross, but in the water with kayaks as opposed to on boards on a mountain.
Yeah, exactly. And I know that I grew up watching that sport, and so it's pretty exciting to be able to be a part of it in, my sport in our own way. And I think it's just great for people to watch. It's so exciting because you don't know what's going to happen until the very end.
Okay, so I want to take people inside what it is like to learn to navigate a river, because again, like I remember my first summer on the water, it was terrible. I was crying all the time because I would flip my boat. I would get wrapped on a rock. I mean, Evy, I got wrapped on this rock so hard when I was rafting, which, like, for those who don't know, like, basically there's a rock in the middle of the river. You're supposed to go around it, right? Like, pretty obvious. No. I couldn't steer this thing around that to save my life. I got wrapped, like, so hard. It took 5 or 6 people to pull my boat off of this rock, and I'm standing on top of it sobbing because this is like my 3rd day of training. And so I'm like, I'm the worst guide. I'm never going to do this sport. I'm never going to, like, who's going to trust me to take them down the river after this chaos? So learning a sport on a living, breathing, moving body of water, what was that like for, like, please tell me I'm not alone in having some like really embarrassing learning on the river stories.
Oh girl, you are not alone at all. If it makes you feel any better, I flipped and got like kind of stuck on an obstacle during the Tokyo Olympics. Like during my Olympic run. So like, I definitely feel you there. I think that such a big part of learning a sport is failing at it sometimes and having those embarrassing moments, because that's when you learn, you probably won't make that same mistake again. I hopefully won't.
Yeah, you will not. We'll manifest that right now.
Yeah. Crossing my fingers.
Yeah, I still, every time I go down the river, I like know where that rock is. And the funny thing is, when I was learning, the water was so low that year, which is why there were so many rocks available to hit in the river. And trust me, I hit almost all of them. But like, I haven't seen that rock since my first summer, which was like 10 years ago, because it's covered by water now, but I know exactly where in the river that is. And so you grew up as the daughter of two people who are probably self-proclaimed river rats, loved learning on the water, loved being on the water. Growing up, what was your childhood like that you were so a part of this community that your parents were a part of, and yet, you're also going through middle school and high school and sort of developing your own life and your own friend circle? Like, what was that childhood like for you?
I think, honestly, looking back at it, it just feels really normal to me. I've been a part of the river community for so long that I can't imagine my life without it. So it's really hard for me to like think back to like what parts about my growing up that it changed, because I wouldn't be me without it. Yeah. I'd say, oh man, that's so tricky.
Isn't it wild how once you get on the river, it really does become a part? Like, I can go anywhere in the world and I'm fascinated by a river, and your sport has taken you to many rivers around the entire world. Some of them, I'm sure, high desert, jungle, rainforest, probably really cold rivers. Like, what are some of the most extreme rivers that you've found yourself in your life?
Well, I guess growing up, I did pretty much all the time just slalom, which I love. And the whole kind of point of that is to do harder moves on easier rivers. So you're not doing the biggest rapids. You're not, traveling to the most remote places in the world. It's really about like building your skills up, being really like technical. And I also do a kind of kayaking, like creeking, river running, whatever you want to call it. And I didn't really start doing that much until maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And I learned on the Green River in North Carolina. And that was really scary for me. I'd say that's the first time that I've really been like scared on a river. And I think I think just because I was exposed to it from such a young age. And a lot of times people ask me like, oh, like surely you're like so scared as you're going down, like so much can happen. And for sure, I think it's a scary sport, but I think that a cool part about slalom is that you don't have to be. And then, like, it's okay to be scared, and it's okay to kind of like feel that and feel all that emotion. But I think it's a really healthy way to kind of like move through it. And then for me to learn, like while creeking, to do that in a completely different way was, I don't know, I think that was probably one of the biggest hurdles that I've had to get over, was actually, learning how to be scared and then, find that confidence still. And I had some really great friends that kind of like taught me how to do that, and I'm so thankful for it. But I definitely think a river can be, a scary place. I've definitely cried my fair share in eddies, above rapids, below rapids. I'm just like a very emotional paddler,
But we're all same. So tell people, for people who don't know what creeking is, because what we're going to see you do in Paris is you're going to compete on a closed course, right? So like, everything that's happening in the water, what you can see, what you cannot underneath you, right? That's the point of like a course. But when you are creeking, when you're doing something like that, what does that entail for people who maybe don't understand what it looks like to go explore a new place?
Yeah, so slalom typically happens on an artificial course. So there's literally a conveyor belt that takes you up to the top, which is amazing because I hate carrying my boat. I think it's the worst thing in the world.
It would be awful.
And it's pretty short. It only takes like about a minute to paddle down. So you can really memorize every single part of it, every single rapid, every single rock, like everything you have down. And I think in like river running and creek boating, you don't have that because it's much longer sections of river. A lot of times it's a 3 or 4 hour run. So even if it's not like the biggest whitewater, it's still really hard to orient yourself and to remember where you are. And for me, visualization is such a big part of what I do. I like to be able to visualize every single stroke that I'm going to take going down. And on like a long river, I just can't do that. I also just don't really have that good a memory. So like growing up, trying to remember a slalom course for a race was awful. I used to have to draw these course maps because I would just go to the wrong gates.
Oh my gosh. So it's so funny. I was reading an article in like prep for this interview, and one of them said you can probably find Evy drawing before her race in the tent, like warming up. Are you drawing the course before your race?
Sometimes I am. Yeah. If I'm having a really hard time remembering it, which I think is very fair, 23 gates is a lot.
It's a lot, and you have to go, and it's like important for people to know, like she says downhill or like downriver and upriver. That means that she literally has to go to the side of the course, flip her boat back upriver, go up the river, and then come back down through the gate thing again. So like this is not an easy, like it's not easy to just go up a river. Like I challenge you to go out into any creek and try it. Like this is not easy. You have to understand the water. You have to understand the eddies. You have to understand what's going on. So I don't blame you. I would want a detailed, like, put Siri in my ear. Okay, at this gate, turn right. At this gate, turn left. Like, I want step-by-step driving instructions.
No, literally. The good thing is, though, when there is a course, it's numbered. The green gates are down. The red gates are up. And so it does make it easier to know, like, where to go through the whitewater and everything when you have these, like, gates, like, telling you where to go. Even if they are, like, pretty tricky. I wish that most rivers had that. I think it would help me a lot.
You're, like, actually on this, like, brand new creek that I'm just trying for the first time. Can I have some markers, please? Can someone put markers down as I go?
Just a couple. Just, like, 10 or 11, maybe, on, like, the big rapids.
Not that many, really. What is the biggest rapid that you have run in your creeking time?
Biggest rapid, I'd say.
Or favorite rapid?
The biggest one that I've done was a waterfall in Chile. It was just like 30 feet, so kind of like a baby waterfall by hiker standards.
Just 30 feet. Hold on, ma'am. That is like 3 stories.
Oh my gosh. But it was amazing. I'm really scared of heights, so that's been tricky for me to kind of overcome. Also with Kayak cross, you start on a ramp, and that's really high. So every time I'm up there, I'm like looking down, and I'm like, oh my God, am I going to really do that? Even though I've done it hundreds of times, surely I'll get over it at some point. I don't know.
So how long is your boat typically? Because like your boat is still free falling. Like when you do the kayak cross, it's not like, oh, the boat kind of touches the water. No, there's like a good second or so of hang time from the moment the gate drops to you actually getting to the water. So you have that free falling experience at the beginning of like every kayak cross race, which must be exciting for somebody with a fear of heights.
Oh yeah, for sure. You're sitting up there at the top, and the starter always goes like, ready, go. But you don't know when they're going to say it. They try to keep it so that everyone has to have like a really fast reaction time. So you just have like, not you, maybe just me. I have like so much like, I guess like excitement and anxiety like at the start, because I'm like, just get me like past this initial drop. And then it doesn't get any better once you drop, because then there's 3 other girls next to you that you're like battling around. But I would 100% of the time, I would rather like the battle than the drop. Just get me off the ramp.
So once you're through the start, the rest of the race, this is where you own. We just have to get you through the start in Paris.
Exactly.
Okay, well, one of the things you mentioned how fast you have to be. And one of the things that I was reading was this stroke, and correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like it's a move that you have sort of made your signature, the hummingbird stroke. Can you explain to me what this is, how either you developed it or became such a massive part of your tactics as a kayak and canoe expert?
Yeah, so when I was younger, I was, always trying to compete with the big girls. And my first year on like the senior circuit, I was 15, and I'd say the average age was like 25 or 30. So everyone was honestly just way stronger than me. And so, for every stroke that they did, I had to take 2 strokes to go as fast as them, because I just didn't have that same pull on the water. So to make up for it, I just started paddling literally as quickly as I could. So like my stroke rate looked completely out of control. There wasn't that much like blade pressure on every stroke, but I like made up for it with just like the sheer volume of strokes that I did. And it was like a hummingbird's wings, it was just going really fast, not that much like pull on everything, but just, getting myself there. And as I've gotten older, it's gotten a little bit more toned down. I've gotten a lot stronger. But I'd say it's still one of my kind of signature things is that my stroke looks very fast and it looks really out of control, but, it gets me there.
There's a method to the madness, we promise.
For sure. I think it's kind of cool because a lot of like countries have their own signature style. Like the French paddlers are known for being very smooth on the water, which means that, every stroke counts. They're setting up, they're using the water so well. They just look like they're just, I don't know, they kind of look like they're just chilling and then they go super fast. It's crazy. But it's so interesting that every paddler has developed their own technique, some way or another.
Yeah, it's like it's a style preference is what happens, because there's so many ways to sort of get you from point A to point B that it makes sense that you have developed your own style within this. The other thing that I was reading about that I think is a really cool thing to talk about as we come off of celebrating Pride Month is just how you have really come into your own as a human being in the spotlight of a sport, because that is what you are in kayak and in canoe. And so can you tell us a little bit about your personal journey and how you sort of started sharing that with the world?
Yeah, for sure. I think that, well, when I was younger, the first person that I kind of like came out to as being bi was, very Southern, very traditional, and didn't really accept it. And it kind of, I don't know, it was really hard for me because I felt like my friend didn't accept like every part of who I was. And like, I don't think that being queer is like anything different than normal, I guess. So it felt really weird to me that someone would kind of care, because it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't affect my paddling at all. It doesn't affect who I am as a person at all. And so kind of as I got older, I just realized that honestly, I shouldn't care what they think because they don't affect me. Well, I mean, they did. They were my friend. But in general, and I don't know, I just wanted to kind of share my journey with that and share that it's completely normal that you can be literally whoever you want and still be like a badass professional athlete. And yeah, I don't know. I hope that, anyone listening and anyone who sees my story just is not afraid to be themselves and not afraid to just put it out there. And, I feel like all of your friends should accept you for exactly who you are. You shouldn't have to change any part of yourself.
Yeah, I mean, and you're only 20 years old, and so this is a journey you've had to go on through your teen years, which is obviously relatively common for a lot of people to have to navigate this aspect of who they are and figuring out their identity. What do you think is the biggest lesson that you learned in coming out, and then not just to your friends and family, but to the world who's going to be rooting you on in Paris?
I don't know. I feel like, not to make it sound like more of like a small deal than it was, but I'd say the biggest lesson I've learned is it's not that deep. Like, you shouldn't ever care what people are going to think about you being your like true authentic self. Like, whether that's coming out or whether that's, dressing the way that you want to a sporting event, or, maybe not looking like the traditional like vision of an athlete. I think that you just need to accept yourself, and as soon as you do that, people are either gonna accept you or not, and it doesn't matter as long as you're really happy and you have that like group of support around you.
It's so cool to see you live your truth and then the joy that comes from it, because it is radiating from you. Like, it seems like you're confident in who you are, you're confident in your skills, and you're ready to make some history here in Paris. What has been the best part of this lead up time to Paris? The qualification is done. You've got your ticket. What is like the best part of your life right in this moment?
Oh my gosh. I feel like there's so many different things, but I'd say that this year in my journey to Paris, I've just been appreciating the small moments. Like, obviously, like the qualification and, the eventual like walking in the ceremony and having that Olympic start, they're huge moments that are going to be with me for the rest of my life. But right now I'm appreciating that I get to, have a croissant on my walk back from training every day, and that I get to be in Paris with some of my best friends who I've been racing with since I was like a child, and, they qualified and I qualified, and now we all get to, be on the water together. I don't know, there's so many small little things, but really that kind of just getting to be with my friends through this and getting to appreciate every moment leading up to it.
Yeah, it's like the joy of presence. It's like you've, which I think, not to like continue to bring it back to the river, but for me, that's one of the things that I truly love about being on the water is that it requires every ounce of your presence. You have to be prepared for the river. You have to be paying attention to the river. And I know you hike and surf and snowboard on your days off. For me, surfing is the same thing, where it's like there's something about being on the water that reminds you just how beautiful being present is, and not worrying about what happened, not worrying about what could happen, but just like soaking in the moment.
Oh my gosh, I completely agree. I feel like for me, when I'm on the water, like I'm not thinking of like anything else that's going on outside my life. I'm just thinking about like literally just the flow of the water and how I get to like be there and use it. And I think that, you know, I get that on artificial rivers and I get that on natural rivers. And it's something that's so special to me when I get to go home, is just to be on that river that I grew up on. Yeah, just kind of appreciate the small little details.
Because that's really what we figured out life is primarily about. It's just all those small little things put together. And all those small things put together have led to you having a chance to make some history in Paris. I cannot wait to root you on. Okay, so now we're going to move into our Something to Sip On. This is a segment brought to you by the Sports Bra, the very first women's sports bar in the world. And they want to know, what are you sipping on, Evy? After a good day on the river, what are you reaching for to sort of celebrate that, or maybe put one of those embarrassing hitting a rock days behind you?
Oh my gosh, I would probably go with, I don't think it has a name, so I'm just gonna like list out the ingredients of what it is. Okay, so it would have to be like passion fruit syrup, maybe like a scoop of like fresh passion fruit. The same with lychee. Just a little bit of that, a little bit of like smashed up watermelon Red Bull and lime.
There we go.
All of that together, just like a fruity little mocktail. So good, so refreshing. My favorite thing.
Oh, that sounds so good. Adding to the cart right now. That's going to be, and it'll give you a little kick too.
Oh yeah. No, like as you should. You have to try it.
I will. Okay, next up, we have our Powered Up segment. So this is where we go rapid fire questions, and literally every podcast I say this is rapid fire. And then we get distracted and there's nothing rapid about it because we tell these funny stories and it is what it is. But we're going to maintain that this is a rapid fire
Okay,
segment.
I love that for you. Positivity.
Exactly. Okay, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Okay. How do you take your coffee?
I am definitely an iced latte girly. Which I feel like being in Paris and training in Paris, they're not big into iced lattes. And I feel like I'm kind of in like withdrawal right now.
Our thoughts are with you in this challenging time.
Thank
I believe in you.
It's a hard life. And then at night, always like vanilla chai with milk.
Ooh, so good. Such a good wind down drink.
Mm-hmm.
Oat milk for sure. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Ooh, that's a tricky one. I'm more of like a frozen yogurt girl than ice cream. So maybe just like your like typical frozen yogurt, like slightly tart, with just like some raspberries on top. That would be my go-to.
I love it. What is your go-to meal before or after kayaking or canoeing?
I really like to make this it's kind of like a sauce. It's tomatoes, zucchini, and spinach with some like lemon juice, just a little bit of salt and pepper, and it's just so good. You can put it on rice or pasta or bread, like anything. I make it way too much.
That sounds so good. I'm gonna get that recipe from you too.
Mm-hmm.
Are you somebody who is a night owl or an early bird?
Oh my gosh, such a night owl.
Really?
I could stay up like as late as I want and not get tired. But I think like as an athlete, you know, a lot of my workouts are really early. When I'm like doing my winter training camps, I have to get up at like 5, and that's just not my vibe at all.
Oh my gosh.
Definitely hard.
Okay, so this is why rapid fire doesn't work, because I forgot. One of the things that we need to talk about is that after you go off and make some history in the Olympics, you also are on track to be pre-med. So speaking of trying to like have to manage a lot of things in practice, you've decided that you're going to take pre-med classes in addition to training to become an Olympian.
Yeah, no, that was like a great decision on my part, right? Yeah,
I just feel like
anyone else studying that can also confirm.
It's a really easy track to take.
Yeah, for sure. No, I barely think about it when I'm studying. Yeah, so I've taken a year off of uni just to like focus on the Olympics, but right now I am doing my EMT, so I'm hoping to get some experience on an ambulance as soon as I'm back from the Olympics, which should be super fun.
How did you get interested in the medical field?
I got interested really young. So actually, I was watching my dad race when must have been like 5 or 6. And I was like running along the riverbank, trying to like follow him and cheer him on. And I just like completely wiped out on a rock, like hit my head. And then this like paddler came up to me and, was checking me out, making sure I didn't have a concussion or anything. And I thought he was the coolest person in the world. I called him the Kayak doctor. And since then I've always been like, I want to be the Kayak doctor.
Okay.
So that's how I first got interested in it.
Okay, so we're gonna go out and win some medals, and then when we're done with that, we're gonna go back and stay on the U.S. national team as the team doctor.
Yes, exactly. I think that's a great idea.
I love it. I cannot wait. As somebody who has had a lot of close friends go through the medical track, Godspeed. I believe in you wholeheartedly.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Okay, so back to our rapid fire. If you weren't an Olympian in canoe or kayak, what would you want to be an Olympian in?
So growing up, I always wanted to be an Olympian in gymnastics. I did gymnastics until I was like 12 or 13. And I really had to like choose between that or kayaking, but like, honestly, I wasn't that great at gymnastics. I'm not that coordinated, but I really did love it. So yeah. I'd say if younger me had to decide, it would be gymnastics. And now it would probably be surfing or like snowboarding. Just because they're all such badass athletes that do it. And they're all such cool people. And, I would love to be like that.
We have a few surfers on this podcast this summer, so make sure you listen. Carissa was our first guest.
Oh my gosh, no way. I just met her like a couple weeks ago at a media summit that I did. She was amazing.
A huge fan of Carissa Moore as a human being and as a surfer. She's the best.
Oh yeah.
She's the best. Okay, what is your dream vacation spot?
Are we talking places I can kayak or places I can't kayak?
Choose your own adventure. Whatever. You can do one of each.
Okay, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I think they're all places I can kayak. So I'm gonna go with New Zealand.
Okay.
I've been to North Island. I've never been to South Island. So much amazing kayaking. And then also Iceland. I'm hoping to go next year to do some like waterfalls and stuff. But I would also just love to go as a tourist and, rent a van, drive around. Yeah.
Yeah, we could just watch the waterfalls. We don't have to always go down the waterfalls.
No, like, I love the idea. It's just that, like, once I see them, I kind of want to do them. I have, like, FOMO when I see a rapid,
I do. I got a chance to go to New Zealand this year at the beginning of the year, and we kayaked. Of course, now I'm going to blank on the name. I'll put it in the notes of the podcast. But we got a chance to raft the largest commercially rafted waterfall in the world.
The Canoe.
Yes, that was it. The Canoe. Yes.
I was there in January. I ran that river. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh. We probably were running it at the same time. We didn't even know. We had
crazy.
So much fun. That river was so beautiful. The water was so warm and it was so playful. It just felt like one of the most sacred, playful, beautiful rivers I think I've ever been on.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's amazing to paddle. I have a lot of friends that, grew up right around there, so it's so cool to finally get to paddle it with them.
Yeah. Did you do the waterfall?
Oh yeah, of course.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Lovely.
Yeah. So again, it's 30 feet. This thing is tall. It was tall in a raft, and a raft is 2 times bigger.
Oh my
than
God,
a kayak.
It's so much scarier in a raft. I feel like I'm really scared of rafting actually because I'm so used to being the only one in the boat and controlling exactly where it goes.
Yeah.
It's hard to let go of that control a little bit.
See, I don't like the control that I give up in a kayak because my legs are stuck. I don't like that my legs are stuck inside something. So, if I flip, right? I grew up in the ocean. I grew up swimming. I want to know that I can use my legs to get me out of whatever situation I've gotten myself in. And so I don't like the idea of the skirt and my legs being scrunched up. Like that to me feels like I've given too much control to the boat itself.
I feel you. I think maybe you should never try canoeing then. For anyone who's listening who doesn't know, canoeing, you're on your knees, still with like the spray skirt and everything, but you are like very cramped in there. You have to shove your legs in.
A little claustrophobic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, how about this? I will try kayaking if you will try rafting with me. We will choose a river and we will do a trade of sports.
I accept the terms.
Okay, great. I cannot wait. We have to go somewhere epic though. Maybe back to New Zealand. We'll see.
For sure. No, that sounds great to me. There's so many.
Okay.
There's just too many options.
Okay, 2025 coming in, new world tour. It's gonna be a great time. Okay, and then the last question, Evy, is what does PowHERful mean to you?
I think PowHERful just means staying really true to yourself and really going after your goals. I think it means not being afraid to fail or to, not get exactly where you want to go or not take the path that you think you're going to take, but still doing everything in your power, having that drive. Because I think that, as a professional athlete, it's been kind of a journey to recognize that I can have really big goals and I can not make them and I can still keep pushing and I can still be proud of myself and the journey that I've been on.
I love that. And that goes back to what we were talking about, which is that it's all those small moments that really make up the journey. Those big moments that you're going to have in Paris are going to be amazing, but all the small moments make every single day worth it, regardless of the outcome.
Oh my gosh, for sure. Yeah, like every day I'm so excited to go to training and see my friends and be on the river and everything. And, that's what drives me. It's not necessarily those big moments or the big wins. It's just, the joy and kind of every day. And I hope to kayak as long as I feel that, which I think is going to be a really long time.
Well, I certainly hope we get to watch you kayak for a really long time because it has been so fun to get a chance to follow your journey the last few years. And I cannot wait to root you on in Paris this summer. Evy, thank you so much for being here.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to listen and hear all of the amazing stories that other girls talk about.
Appreciate you. Thanks so much for joining us this week on the PowHERful Podcast. We'll see you all next week. This is a reminder to check us out every Tuesday all summer long, everywhere you get your podcasts. And if you really enjoy this and don't want to miss an episode, be sure to hit that subscribe button.